Hello everyone and welcome to a quick guide on how to use the Markpoint feature in the F-16. Had a request on this off the back of my steerpoint video, and so just wanted to go through that here. So first off, I'll cover how to set up the Markpoints. We've got various different methods that we can use for this, and then after that we'll go through how to actually use them. Now, the first one we're going to cover is the Overfly point. This is by far the simplest one. This will be by default what you get if you are in air-to-air mode, but you can cycle to it with the other modes. What we need to do to enter any mark point is on our ICP here, we need to click Mark 7. This brings up the mark points. Your first mark point will be mark point 26. It will then automatically go up to 30 and then start cycling back to 26. So you do have a limit on how many you can put in. Either way, here to get this in the correct mode, we want this in the overfly point. So if we use the little doubler here to press sequence until we get overfly. Then nice and simply, once you're happy with the coordinates that you are vertically over, all you need to do is push TMS up and you will get the mark point. You know you've got the mark point because it will appear with the new coordinates there. If you've got the HSD up, you will also see the mark point being left behind as a small little cross there, and we'll see that that is where we were flying over. Nice and simple, and then we can go back to our regular mode just by hitting return on the doubler. Now we're back to the normal mode, we've left our mark point back there. Now next up, let's say we wanted to assign the mark point using the HUD. I'll just straighten out here. So same idea, we go back to Markpoint. This time we leave this in the HUD mode. And then what we do is using the slew controls, just as you would moving the TGP around, you use those to move this little dot here on the HUD. Put that over where you want it to go, press TMS up, it will switch to ground stabilized mode, so you can fine tune as needed, and then TMS up again. And you get the new coordinates. Do note you have to do TMS up twice, once to ground stabilize, once to assign it. Once again, you can check this, you've got the new coordinates entered, and we can see that it has automatically gone to mark point T7 there. Now the next one I want to demonstrate is the targeting pod mode. So for this, it's best to go into air to ground mode, get your targeting pod set up. Once again, go to Markpoint if you're not in it already, and then we click the sequence button until we get TGP, targeting pod. This should be the automatic mode if you are in air to ground mode with the targeting pod already selected. It's very easy to miss it, so just use the sequence button to change this onto what you want it to be. Once you're in that mode, you can use the targeting pod as normal. So let's say we pick out this building here, and then simply we TMS up once to assign that as a point track. And it's having issues with the point track there. And then TMS up again will assign that, and once again we see that being updated. So this little house here is our new target point there, new mark point. Once again I can go over to the HSD and see that, yep, right there, that's the coordinates that I've just entered. So the next mode I want to demonstrate is using the fire control radar to enter your coordinates, and so once again to do this, let's go to our mark section. This time I want to sequence over until I find the FCR page. FCR page should be down here and then selected, so what I do is in the top left of the FCR I click CRM and then GM to put it on ground mapping mode. I can see here there's a ground mapping mode on this map. This is very oversaturated, so I'll just turn down the gain a little bit so I can actually see. And then I pick something that I want to set as my mark point, so it's a nice little dark point here. If I want, I can change my zoom level. So here I've got the expanded view. and then TMS up assigns that position. And just as before, this has been entered here, and we can see here this is my mark point on my HSD. So there we go, that is assigned. Once again, go return, set everything back to normal. Now the final method, and perhaps the most useful method for this sort of thing, is the head-mounted queuing system. So you need to make sure that's on. So down here, twist this knob if you've not done it already. Worth noting that the hot start in this aircraft does not start with the HCS on, so you may as well turn that on as you take off. As part of my startup is to get this aligned, but just in case you haven't, make sure it's on. Now once again, what you want to do is go to the Mark page. Now sequence over onto HUD. Now when you look out, normally you will get this little cross in the middle. So the little HUD designator is currently caged to the HUD. To move it onto the head-mounted display, press and hold TMS up. We then get this little circle being caged to the front of our display. You can then drop it on the ground stabilize by TMS up once. You can adjust it with the TDC as normal. Then once you're happy with it, TMS up once again, and there we go, we've saved that new position. If you want to undesignate, you just do TMS down. This works for all the modes, and so then I can quickly assign another position here. So ground stabilize and assign, that is 28 done. Undesignate, look over here, let's say this bridge, ground stabilize, adjust it a little bit so it's on the actual bridge. TMS up, 29 done. And just for demonstration, I'm going to save a couple of other points. So going through this method, moving this around, designate up. You can see now I've got onto mark point 30. This is the last mark point I am allowed to enter. If I enter another one, say I want to go and drop some bombs on this runway here, designate, adjust with the radar controls, TMS up once to save it. See, we've now cycled back to 2.6. So you've got a limit of 5 mark points that you can put down. It will just automatically cycle. Once you hit 3.0, it goes back to 2.6. So just bear that in mind. You don't have an infinite number of these. If you want something saved for a long amount of time, you need to save it as an actual steer point rather than the mark points. Now all of that is done, how do you actually go about using these things? And so while we're still in the mark point page, what we want to do is put this M-select button here, and what this will do is select the last mark point that you entered as your SPI. So 2.6 was the last one I entered. That has now been selected. We can see it is our steer point here. It is marked as such on the HSD. I'm just going to turn it around. We can see we get all the regular symbology here. So I've got the diamond on my HUD and my HMCS showing me where I am looking. I can, for instance, go over to my targeting pod, and there we go, the targeting pod is automatically slewed. Right, so let's put all of this together and see how we'd use this in an actual attack. So let's say I've been called in, given a description, and told that this bridge over here needs to go down. Well, I can do that. Mark point, select. HUD mode is fine. So look over to the bridge. You can see I don't have the circle, so TMS up long. We'll then select it. Then once more, TMS up to select our ground stabilize mode. Put it over where I want it, TMS up, saves it. That is the mark point entered. M-select has entered that as my steer point. I've got my Mavericks on pre-plan mode. And so they will automatically attempt to slew to the steer point, just as it's done here. May need to adjust these a bit, particularly if I've not bore sighted my Mavericks. Zoom it in a little bit. There we go, I am tracking a car on the bridge apparently. That'll do. One Maverick away on the car on that bridge. Very, very quick. Very, very useful, and you can do this with all of your normal weapons, so whether they are GPS weapons, laser guided weapons, or just slewing a targeting pod to something, this can be an incredibly quick way of doing so. Now, last thing just to cover here is, well, what if you don't want the last mark point you selected? What if you wanted one of the others? Well, we can still do that, but we need to select it as the steer point using the steer point screen. So let's say I wanted to go to mark point 30. Your mark points are just steer points. They're just steer points 26 to 30. So let's go back. Go to steer point. I can use the little doubler select, this thing here, to cycle between my various steer points. I've got this as a HOTAS control, so I can just cycle that if I want to. Or if I want to be nice and quick, I can then just type 30, enter, and there we go. Steer point 30 is now selected. And there we go, it's over there. So you can use this for quick navigation, you can use this for every purpose you would ordinarily use steer points for, but we've now got a whole load of new ways to very quickly slap one down. Anyway, if you have any questions about that, please do let me know down below. Otherwise, I hope I catch you in a future video. Till then, remember to be kind to yourselves and everyone else. Cheers.